From the center of the galaxy, this is a very special edition of Star Wars Ranked. You might know me. I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw. I have a Jedi shirt and a beer, and I'm with Star Wars friends. I'm in my happy place.
And I look a little disheveled. I got to get even. It's, we're still adjusting. This is a live episode of Star Wars Ranked. It's been a bit since we've done Star Wars Ranked. I think the best Andor, our favorite Andor moments was the last episode. But this one, we'll say right now, is being recorded live because, Joseph, of our Patreon supporters, our patrons on Patreon. This is a live episode for them, and the rest of you get to hear this a little bit later. That's exciting stuff, yeah?
Yeah, that is exactly right. This is because of a goal. This is one of the things we wanted to experiment with, and so we set it as one of the goals, and our Patreon's been doing really well. Thank you, everyone who has been helping and supporting it. We got to this goal faster than we thought we would. Time has no meaning, so it seems like didn't we break this goal like 2 years ago? It was probably 2 months ago. And thank you for everyone for having the patience and understanding as we went through the amazing Star Wars adventure of going to Star Wars Celebration in London. And now we are getting down to it, talking a wonderful topic, an amazing topic.
It's a big topic. I'll say before we get to the topic, though. Yeah, you're right. I've been blown away by the support. I've been blown away by the support of Force Center for 9 seasons now. But I thought we would have like a little bit more time to come back from London and Paris and your trip up to kind of your homeland in a weird way, Nottingham, and recover. But here we are. We're live, and I'm excited. And we got people like Greer Galloway in chat, David McKay. These are people we met. We got Brian Ward here. Still love the theme song. Brian Ward's been hanging out with those Force Center boys, having a good time here. Harrison Gibson as well. We met Harrison in London as well. So, all right. If you've seen the thumbnail, if you've clicked the title of the podcast, you know what we're doing here. We are doing a big one, Joseph. It is our favorite sequel trilogy scenes. What's your gut reaction to even just that title?
Oh, the same reaction I have to almost all of our ranked topics. We're like, oh, what should we do? What should we do? And like, oh, that's great. I don't want to do that. It's too hard. I'll leave out loved ones. It's always fun to have the task to narrow it down, and as you and I always say, to narrow it down, and to also with the sequel trilogy to watch it evolve. And there's some of my picks that are like that. I think is going to be evergreen. I think that's always going to be one of my favorite scenes, and others that pop to me because I'm thinking about the sequel trilogy in a different way, or they've been informed by the Star Wars stories that have come since.
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah, some I loved then and love now and will always will, even with the added context. There's a scene I'm going to rank today that I've absolutely talked about before. It's absolutely a scene I've celebrated, but it just kind of felt right for me to put it in there versus some of the other scenes I've talked about over the years. And that's another thing, too. A lot of the longtime Force Center fans are about ready to sit down, listen to us probably talk about things we've talked about before because the love is strong, but this is kind of permanent record, right? We're putting it down on permanent record, what we love.
Until maybe a year from now, we do it again and see if they changed.
Yeah, we already got some wonderful comments from the live Patreon audience there. So we'll bring those in a little bit later. One of the big differences here, for those who aren't familiar with Star Wars Ranked, we are going to, it's so fun. It's definitely evolved over the years. It's a ranking 5-1. But also, it's hard to actually put them in an order. And we call it our favorites now, just to kind of make sure it's not a competition. And if you disagree, it's only because your heart's in a different spot than ours, not your list. We'll also announce right now, no special runner-ups from us. This was our challenge for this live show, but we might have some from you. So if you have some scenes, I've already seen Jacob live put in a great list. We'll put some of those in during the normal slot for our runner-ups, which Joseph actually made it even more difficult to make our list.
That's right. We added an extra challenge because we're like, should we do 5 and just 2 runner-ups? Because the Star Wars Ranked that we were doing for the podcast had gotten to like, well, we'll keep the list of 5, but for runner-ups, we'll do 27 each. And now we've recited the entire film. So this was a really fun way to limit ourselves. Like, no, we're serious 5. Partially because we wanted to give ourselves that challenge, and we wanted to leave the room to have this fun experiment of doing this with live commentary from our friends and listeners and fans, and see what they think and how they react.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. As I said, we work 5-1. We're ranking our favorite sequel trilogy scenes, and that means 7, 8, and 9. Not the sequel era, Rogue One and Solo. That would have to be a 10-scene list from each of us if we're going to do that. There, tough choices. Some scenes may have been cut. It's going to be exciting. We'll work our way 5-1, beginning, Joseph, with your number 5.
All right, here we go. It begins. My number 5 is Leia and Han talk about losing their son Ben in The Force Awakens. Yep,
Ooh.
there. Oh, Ken, you did a great job. You picked
Ooh.
amazing photos throughout. I got a preview, everyone. Ken picked great Star Wars pictures and pictures that look like they could just be from an indie film where the characters are wearing kind of different clothes,
A
really
Moody one.
capturing the emotion, which is wonderful. I've always loved this scene. I think it is a scene that I know has challenged some people over the years of, not being sure about the dialogue, being a little, tortured, unsure about Han and Leia having parted at all.
Mhm.
So I think there are definitely some things that people have struggled with. I've always liked the scene. I've always thought it was classic Star Wars of the
Mm.
characters are emotional. There is subtext, but they're also just they're saying what they mean and catching us up on where they're at.
Yeah.
But this one has had extra resonance for me lately because I've really, really been thinking about the sequel trilogy as many things, but the part that's been resonating for me is it's an examination of how everybody interacts with the past.
Mm.
Are they afraid of it? Are they certain that it can't be moved past? Do they value it? Do they overvalue it?
Yeah.
How are they going to move forward? And this scene has become really resonant to me because I think it starts a little bit of a picture of how Han and Leia, two of the most important characters, are interacting with the past. It's got an element of fun comedy and banter to it. Of don't do that. What? Anything. Great Han and Leia
Yeah.
banter. But then we get into the heart of the matter, and Han is kind of apologizing. They're kind of coming together over their pain. But Han is kind of fixated on the idea that this was inevitable.
Mhm.
The past got him. The
Right.
shadow of Vader got him with his great line, there's just too much Vader in him.
Mm.
And that's an understandable way to feel, right? But
Yeah.
seeing Leia share that level of pain, share a responsibility or a fear that she was a part that her choices led to this of, I shouldn't have sent him away. That's when I lost him. That's when I lost
Mm.
you. Uh, so she's not being like, la la la, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. She's taking full responsibility, full pain. But then she has certainty that the past is not going to dictate the future. She's
Mm.
got that great line of, "Mm, there's still light in him. We can save him. You, me." It's Leia as a beacon of hope, even after taking lots of damage. And as many fans have pointed out, the scene became so much more resonant, even more resonant after the Rise of Skywalker. And we get to see how Han's love as a father, the memory of that, Leia reaching out to Kylo through the Force, that those were the things that made a difference and made Ben realize that it's not too late. So great banter, classic scene, classic pain, and a
Yeah.
great just sort of setting up the themes of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, it does. As time goes on, this scene becomes, I think, more important to the thematic thesis topic or the thesis statement of the trilogy. I think it's a big, well said for what you're saying. What's at the core of it, and for me, like I've always said, like I get we picked this up all these years later. We got one of the greatest love stories in pop culture history, Han and Leia, and here they are. They're separated, and it's painful and it's very real. I understand some people might rub up against that, but I've always kind of liked that decision. Thought it was a very realistic decision, and think this scene is kind of a wonderful continuation of the banter on Hoth, right? Like you're saying, it's funny, it's them, it's whip smart, it's grumpy Han, it's Leia. But then to put it up against what you're talking about here, how they deal with this, and how Leia, being this wonderful, steadfast character that we all know, just like her mother before, is choosing to go forward and has the ability to see beyond the darkness, where Han's my guy is a little bit more like, like, what are we gonna do? And I think that just adds to the emotional punch of the scene because of what's to come. And I think you're right. It is fair to say that I know this has always been one of your favorite scenes. This is a scene that I've appreciated more and more. But now that we know what happens, you go back to this one, and I think I think it adds to its importance, and just it's perfect for a good number 5 to start us out for this discussion of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, it starts us on our journey real well, and I love how grumbly Harrison Ford is. I love the people recording the dialogue are like, all right, we're gonna get those mics real close to your throat. Went back to the only thing I ever knew, which I absolutely love too. That picture of they both went back to what they knew best, which is Leia has to do it to move forward, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a great picture of like sometimes when you get wounded, you retreat a little bit. And then from here, our characters move forward, just like our list.
Just like our list. Great way to start with number 5. My number 5 is also going to be in the realm of The Force Awakens. It's a scene. Yeah, I've celebrated this scene before in many ways. I still go back to it. And when we were putting our list together, I did what I think you do as well. You just kind of sit back in your chair and you just kind of zoom through the movies real quick and be like, what jumps out to me? And it was hard for me to not put this number 5. It is what I call the double interrogation scene. Kylo Ren, Rey, their first real meeting. Yeah, they kind of had a little, a little shoot fest there, a little pew pew fest outside of Maz's castle. But this is their first real meeting, and this scene, I just think, has it's so important to see their connection, but it grows out of this intimacy that maybe neither of them want at this time. And this is the scene in which Kylo invades her mind against her will. He's so brazen, he's so strong, and that moment where he takes the helmet off, and yep, I remember a couple giggles at his beautiful feathered hair. It's pretty luxurious. It changed over the years, but he was pretty proud of that hair, and he was pretty confident. And for this to be Kylo Ren's first defeat in my heart, I'm sure maybe he had some stumbles along the way. We've seen some stuff in the comics, but for him just to be like, oh, you think I'm a monster? I don't need this mask. I'm who I think I am, and she sees right through it. It's later kind of developed and maybe into the Force connection, but I think even that Force connection is not about pressing the X button of the Force. It goes back to stuff like this. They both have seen each other. They've seen their true selves, and it's a real wonderful, powerful scene. And to have we got Rey's journey unfolding in front of us, but have this scene where Rey kind of feels it. It's intuitive, and it's something that was always there, and she kind of connects to it and kind of have that wake up moment of like, I can defend myself against your advances into my heart and soul, and you know me, no, I know you too, and the fear that both of them have, and how Star Wars, we know fear is at the central portion of the story and the themes, to have it just be a driving force for both of them, and how they can respond and grow, change through that. I love this scene even more. Hair and all.
Very well said. I want to highlight a couple comments real quick. Going back a beat to the first scene we discussed, Jonathan here says about that Han and Leia scene. Favorite thing about those Han Leia scenes is that JJ shot them as people, not as icons. Still are heroes, but so human. Great observation. Went back to grab that because if you have specific thoughts about the scene that we're discussing, feel free to put those out, and we'll try to share a few as we go through. The other one I want to share, because it was the first comment I thought of when you brought this, when you sent me your list, Ken, is this from Greer. Driver's delivery of "I see it, I see the island" has been seared into my mind for that first viewing. Same. And it's one of those things that kind of washed over me the first time. I was like, that's great. Ooh, an island, what? And then so caught up in everything, sort of forget it. And then the second viewing, like, wow, the island. She's already seen it in her mind somehow, that destiny heading that direction. So great. I love everything you said, Ken. This is such an important scene in their connection. It appears all antagonistic and actually quite awful, right? Kylo is pushing himself to be a monster. He wants to be a monster. It's why he needs to kill his dad, because he thinks it'll seal the deal and I will become what I was meant to be and I'll have killed the past, all those things. But it's awful that he is literally invading her mind. It's an awful thing to do. But
Mhm.
it becomes a scene so much about vulnerability of
Yeah.
both of them seeing one another. Him trying to seem strong by taking the mask off, but that just is a kind of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I love not only that, as you said, that she intuitively she doesn't need training. Somebody is in her mind, and she instinctively
Yeah.
pushes back. And the way it works is that she sees his fear, and it's so important that we hear that fear, the fear
Mhm.
that he will never be as strong as Vader.
Yeah.
And that's such a great and powerful way to end it. And, when he goes running to Snoke like a little kid, you know, it's he's saying that the fear and the concern is that she's powerful in the Force, but
Yeah.
everything is he's shaking in his boots from being seen of
Yeah.
that true deep fear of I ran away from the legacy of these titans, these light side heroes of my parents, my uncle, and I kind of tried to grab onto this other legacy, and now I'm going to fail that too.
Gonna fail that too, and and a movie that is very much about taking the masks off, right? I remember we all had a conversation with Jennifer Landon with the first kind of reviews of Force Center. Jennifer was really excited about that. Like the trailer starts with masks on, and everyone slowly takes their mask off. Ray's goggles,
Hmm.
Finn's helmet, and Kylo. And I love that his is just the confidence, and then the switch is just one of my favorite things about it there. So yeah, there you go. My number 5 starts off. We'll catch up with some of the comments here between them as well. Yeah, good to pull Jonathan's in earlier, Joseph, and he says here, remember what my wife giggled the first time Kylo took his helmet off. By the end of the movie, she said, I hope he dies horribly. Yeah. Jonathan follows up. That's how you create a villain. Yeah, Carmen Taylor saying Ray reading Kylo was a great scene. Yeah, and it's just it's that early victory, and you see the connection. You see it's powerful there. So great stuff there. And going back to your scene, Ethan Truman says Luke's a Jedi. You're his father. So powerful. I don't think we're done talking with that talking about that kind of connection there, Joseph. But that's one too that I think even I love, Ethan, that you highlighted it, because I think the first couple of viewings, that's one of those kind of beats that I think I overlooked, right? Because I was just expecting, well, Luke's going to save the day, right? I think I was like a lot of folks, including those in the Resistance, and I love the importance of that line to Han.
Yeah, there's many things about Han, just the way he holds himself, the fact that my father always loved any Harrison Ford movie,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some elements of Han that are extra powerful to me because they're like my dad. He
Mm.
gets better and better every year with emotion, but there's that like, wow, yeah, you got to do a theater thing. You could ask your fancy theater friends, and sometimes like, Dad, but I want your advice.
Your advice.
You're my
Yeah,
father. I want your advice, Dad.
that's
It's
wonderful.
powerful, really powerful.
The list is off and running. That's our number 5 choices, which means, sir, we're up to your number 4.
Number 4, we are flying. And speaking of flying, my number 4 is Finn and Poe meet in The Force Awakens. We've heard of meet cutes. This was a meet fun, in my opinion. Uh, there's so much about The Force Awakens that it really is to me like let's get back into the heart of Star Wars. It has the depth and the
Mhm.
trauma and the myth and the family, but it also has just that sense of fun, that adrenaline, that forward movement. And there's so much in their meeting that is just the pure adventure in fun. Finn, getting him out of there and pulling him out, and just the back and forth banter that can you fly a TIE fighter? I can fly anything. It's just the utter cockiness of
Mhm.
Poe is so great. And then the music cue, it's great when the great John Williams can help sell the comedy
Yeah.
of a scene of why are you helping me? Because it's the right thing to do. The music stops. You need a pilot. I need a pilot. Uh, it's all this great banter, the energy of Poe going, "We're gonna do this." The line reading of "I see it, I see the island" is stuck in my head. I don't find ways to work that into my life unless I
Yeah.
literally see an island, uh, because I don't invade people's minds. It's wrong, but we're gonna do this. I think of that like every time I have to do something like
Mhm.
stupid or I don't want to do. It's time to hit send on the taxes. We're gonna do this. It's just that like you imagine Yoda fist pumping. See, do or do not. There's no try. That's what I'm talking about. Look at that attitude. We're gonna do this.
Yeah,
Uh,
good. Give Yoda the
So
bite. Mhm, mhm, right.
yes. Yeah, so there's all this great camaraderie, there's, this energy, the comedy too of the calm down, I am calm, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah,
Every beat, funny, but once they get into the TIE fighter and there's action and the last gasps of the Wilhelm scream,
yeah,
uh
yeah,
then there is the beat in the TIE fighter that is core Star Wars thematic,
yes.
of, uh, loving, human, flowing, organic defiance of cold mechanical tyranny. When they're having this fun adventure, they're figuring out that they can do this together, and Poe asks, Finn's name, and, that's the
Mm,
only name they ever gave me. In the sheer the defiance of, "Well, I ain't using it."
yeah,
Finn. I'm gonna call you Finn. And the scene could have ended there and it would have been great. But the permission that Poe asks of like, "Do you like it?" And Finn's like,
mhm.
"Yeah, yeah, I like it." It's so powerful to see a new name, a new identity, a new perspective christened in the middle of this fun, forward moving action adventure scene.
It's such a great choice because it does such a great job in setting up these 2 characters, right? I think this might have been I think Oscar Isaac starts strong even with the stuff going on with Lor San Tekka and Kylo Ren, but he really is just cemented as that charismatic kinda leading man, and even though, Poe was, considered, I don't know, supporting in this particular film, I don't know, you can deal with that later, but, he just bursts through it. This is probably the moment where they're like, "We gotta keep this guy alive. Like, we gotta keep this guy alive." Um at the setting up of Finn, and I think it's very important too. I think when you track Finn through 7, 8, and 9, you got to go to this moment where it's such it's fear that's driving him, fear driving a lot of these characters at this point. It is a good it's good instincts. It's feeling. He's got a feeling, but he hasn't fully developed that, and so he's doing this out of a little bit of desperation, a little bit of fear, and I think that's a driving force from going forward. And from here to see where he ends up and where he grows, I think it just makes this scene even more powerful. And for I don't want to say just for us or any, but for Star Wars fans who have been waiting for this film for a long time, and the prequels in the rearview mirror, no matter what you thought about it, it's just like, what are they going to do this time? Is it going to feel like Star Wars? I particularly remember I was so nervous sitting in the theater, the dialogue with Lor San Tekka and everything. I'm like, I think I like it. I think I like it. I think they did this. I think they did this. It was this scene that made me sit back in my seat and go, oh, Star Wars is here. The
Yeah.
sound of that TIE fighter sputtering, and then, oh, the classic sound, the action sequence. Someone once told me, I don't know, it seems like a video game sequence. I was like, yeah, isn't that great? Isn't that great? This is what you want to play. You want to get out of there. You want to weave and bob out of those guns, and then have TIE fighters chasing. This is Star Wars. And we need the deep themes. We need Finn's starting point. We need Poe being the shoot first, jump later, and
Mhm.
figure it all out at some other time. We need that, but we also needed to know that Star Wars has got its action. It's got its pew pew pew. It's got its serial adventure, and this was the first adventure in this serial we are seeing. So I love the scene for that.
Yeah, it's got its found family too, immediately out of the
Mm,
gate here with that great energy. Yeah, and the video game thing, I get that sometimes, but you know what? A lot of video games are like, "Hey, what if we could make people feel like Star Wars?" So
yeah,
I think there's a little bit of that. I also just like that Poe is consistent to me throughout the trilogy.
yeah.
He's always gotten his heart, "We're gonna do this," but by the time he's fighting to keep everything still going
Mm,
in Rise of Skywalker, he's like,
mm,
"We're gonna do this." Yeah,
mm,
I know. We're gonna do this.
mm,
The spirit is still there, but all the lessons and the world weariness is I think what's so strong there. I want to
yeah.
highlight this great comment from Andrew McNabb, who we also got to meet in Star Wars Celebration.
Oh yeah,
Andrew
Andrew.
says, I bought a talking Finn action figure before The Force Awakens came out. To avoid spoilers, the toy's dialogue was so vague. He mainly shouted, "We go back to Jakku, we die." So Leo DiCaprio pointed at this scene.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Andrew. I love that there. Yeah, Brian Ward says this Finn post scene is about the point where I went from I hope this new Star Wars movie is good to this might be great in my first viewing. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Brian. That's what I felt. That TIE fighter sound, that sputter is still one of my favorite sounds in all of Star Wars. I don't know what it
Oh,
is about it. Just it's just a
oh, it's so solid. It's so solid.
yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to pick up another one, and I flashed a future future thing we'll see on here. Here's the one I wanted to grab. Will Culbertson saying, and I love that the score they use here becomes Poe's theme in the later films. That is great for all of our music aware friends to share those things with us that I don't always pick up on. And then the next time I watch, I'll be like, oh yeah. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. One more shot of the photo that we selected for this. I tried really hard to find a sequence, a shot that was like both of them, and then Oscar's just Oscar, right? He's just good looking, charismatic chap. I forgot that he's got blood on the side of his face for most of them. So if you're watching this on YouTube or on the podcast, I go check it out. I forget about that bloody temple. That bloody temple.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that picture looks. We described it as fun, heartwarming, sweat and blood.
Hey, there you go. Well, a great choice for number 4, which ties. And you know what? Sometimes we coordinate our list a little bit once we get both of our choices, but I didn't really plan this, but it flows perfectly. Let's jump to episode 9. One of my favorite scenes, but this is the first time I've really taken kind of a deeper dive, a spotlight on this scene. It is
Mm.
Lando and Poe at the foot of Leia after she passes. Well, kind of. She's there. She's holding on. We know some stuff going on there with her, but exactly what you're saying. We're gonna do this guy, and I've got this guy is sitting there wondering how they can pull it together and how they can do it. And I was thinking, Joseph, what are some of my favorite scenes that I've talked a lot about? Of course, I love and you love, and who doesn't love in terms of like Force Center friends, we celebrate this one a lot in our Discord of the there's more of us, Poe. There's more of us, Poe, right? It's a chill-inducing, tear-inducing moment for me. But that, I think, is built on the back of this scene for me. And to
Mhm.
even hear that Oscar Isaac, that in the development of the film, was like, I kind of want a moment like this with Poe. I think this is what the character would need. I think there's this real honest doubt. And you talk about these films interacting with the past, this real simple, direct. How did you all do it? How did you do it? You were the rebellion. You were outgunned. And he's not talking about, you had Mothma here and Luthen Rail here. And all those facts are not there. It's the spirit of it, of how did you pull yourselves out of bed every day and topple this empire? How did you do that? How did you fight the oppression and have just Lando be like, we had each other? And Lando being this guy who went through this big sea change, right? This big, I'm going to plug in now because I get it. It adds even more to this scene and why it matters. And just have, it's not a big speech. It's not a Braveheart speech. It's not, a king before an army. It's just this real quiet, simple. We had each other. Luke, Leia, Han, none of us were ready. I wasn't ready. In fact, when this started, Lando could have said, didn't want to be ready. I didn't care. But we have each other. And it's a quiet moment. And for Poe to be what you talked about, this get your head out of your cockpit kind of guy, to have this real bare bones, intimate, vulnerable moment, that kind of view of a leader, that kind of view of, in this particular case, a man, a classic leading man with a cool jacket and a sexy overbite. Have him just be like crying at the edge of this bed going, I don't know how to do this. I think that made the victory later on matter even more and have a little bit more for me. So Lando, Poe, it's a sad, somber scene. It's a tiny little quick scene, but it remains as one of my favorite in the sequel trilogy.
I think it's really important because there is, as was being pointed out, like in the great comment about the way that J.J. Abrams shot Han and Leia in that Force Awakens scenes we were talking about to make them people, not necessarily myths. And
Mm,
there's so much in the sequel trilogy, starting with Rey being like, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth.
right.
And that is such a true way, I think, about the way that we interact with mentors or heroes who came before us, right?
Mm,
They must have had some special magic because from
right.
our perspective as younger people, it was preordained,
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra was always going to be successful in my eyes. He just didn't know it yet, right?
Yeah.
Um, which a weird example, but people who know Forster know I love Frank Sinatra. So I love that it was Lando pulling it back down to we're people first, and people become myths when they work hard.
Mm,
Uh, and yeah, I love that it's such a short scene because Lando could have come in here like, well, let
yeah.
me play you, chapter 47 of the Calrissian Chronicles called The Dining Room. I made some choices and they weren't great.
Yeah.
What I also love about it is two things, and keep it trucking along here. I really like that it is building on what is truly there in Return of the Jedi.
Mhm.
Of when you break down that big scene at the end of taking down the Death Star, Lando is the one who's there for Han and Leia.
Mm.
There other people are like, should we get out of here?
Yeah.
And you got to give Han more time. You could kind of just,
Mhm.
gloss over as an action line and a
Oh, no,
stakes
yeah.
builder, right? But the way that whole approach is structured, Luke
Mhm.
is taking care of what he needs to.
Mhm.
Han and Leia have this part of the plan. Lando has this part of the plan, and Lando is saying, my weird friend Han, I know he's got this. I know who he is. Everybody believe him. So we had
Mhm.
each other resonates in a great and deep and real way for me.
Yeah.
Other thing is there's so much in Rise of Skywalker that is not subtle. It is underlining it again and again that this isn't just the story of the people with the special midi-chlorian blood,
Mhm.
that this is about everybody being there for one another. And I think this is another wonderful scene that illustrates that and leads Poe to go right to Finn and say, "If you're right by my side, I don't feel the weight. It's all of us together."
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that makes the argument that's so beautiful in Rise of Skywalker of the unity and strength.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In Ethan here says, speaking of lines of delivery, steer in mind, you got to give him more time. That line is faith. That is faith. That is belief in the face of impossibilities. And I think that's what Lando is bringing to this. And this leads directly to another little bumper scene. I think you and I've celebrated before, but you just kind of hinted at it. Poe and Finn, and I need you. I need you to be general. It's a funny scene, but that's where Poe starts picking up the energy. It doesn't mean it's easy from here on out. Like you said, there's no magic elixir. They still got to get there. He's still going to have some hope dash, but this is a big theme, and it's kind of that wonderful Star Wars theme, right? Community, togetherness on
Yeah.
a deep emotional core level.
Yeah. And also Lando was earlier being like, I'm out of the fight earlier in this film.
Yes,
And he found the strength again to come back.
absolutely, absolutely. There, looking at some of the comments here before we move on our number 3 choices. Anakin Cressman says all the Lando scenes episode 9 are tear-inducing for sure. Yeah, there's such a warmth to it. I think maybe because we did have to wait 2 movies, and in the end, I'm glad we did. I would have loved him in 7. I would have loved him in 8, but I think when we finally did get him, it just made it that much more sweet. So that's
Yeah.
my thoughts on that one.
Blazing golden shirt. Yes. Worth it.
There we go. All right. Well, we are now going to move on to our number 3. We're zipping along here. We'll be done in under 6 hours. It's going to be great. Let's go to your number 3. We're looking at our favorite scenes from this sequel trilogy.
Well, this is one that I think we've maybe talked about on Force Center before, but it is Luke Skywalker versus Kylo Ren on Crate.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Okay, this one is pretty clearly a space fantasy, not an indie movie.
But it's the other one I pulled for those watching. This shot I've never really pulled before, but it definitely looks it's a very far away shot. Sets the battle scene. I love that one.
That looks like an LA helicopter waiting for a car chase on the 101 is what that one looks like. That one's amazing to see it from
Yeah,
just isolated from that angle.
yeah,
Uh, there's so much to love about this scene, and there's so much that's been said. This is going to be one of my evergreen scenes for sure.
yeah.
But a couple things that I've really been resonating about it is now that we've had several years with the complete arc in knowing that Ben Solo makes a better choice and how he makes a better
Mm,
choice, it is almost more enjoyable to be able to just see him at what I think is almost his lowest moment. He's uh, corrupted.
mm,
That there's the sort of the sickness and the throbbing in his scars. He's spitting and petulant. He is scary, but it's so pathetic at the same
mm,
time.
mm,
The more before this, and the line that's always kind of got a little bit of a laugh, even though it's a dramatic scene, and it's never been a laugh that's uh, derailed the drama for me because it is about Kylo being so angry and scared to be so petulant. Is
mm,
when Luke's been really clear to Leia, I can't save him. He says, not that he can't be saved, but Luke,
mhm,
I'm just a Jedi, not his father. Luke knows he's the one who really helped push him to this. He's not
mhm,
going to be the one to get him back. Luke says that to Kylo, but Luke still feels the need to say so sincerely, I failed you, Ben. I'm sorry. And before he can even, like, he just barely gets the words out, and like, I'm sure you are. It's so petulant, and to me, there is an element of comedy to it, but it is about this lowest point that Kylo is in, where there's just desperation of what else can I kill or end to make myself feel like uh, that I made the right choice, and I'm not owned. I'm not owned,
Right.
in the process becoming the most owned he's been. Uh, so there's the Kylo of it, which I haven't always concentrated on, that I've
Mm,
really appreciated. Uh, and then there is just the utter power of Luke Skywalker. I think it was the first thing that we talked about that I wanted to talk about in our first review of The Last Jedi,
mm,
is that there's always been this power of Luke is a hero who uses the lightsaber when needed, absolutely can, absolutely will, but deeply doesn't want to. And the line to Yoda earlier in the film, if I can't be what she needs me to be,
mm,
he can't raise a blade. He can't, even if he had a means, which he could have lifted his X-wing out then to physically go there. He couldn't. And the fact that he found a way, chose a way that worked for him, I think it has always been powerful, always connected deeply to his choice in Return of the Jedi. Uh, it's this picture of Luke Skywalker as a true Jedi. He is doing what Jedi are ultimately, essentially there to do. The dark side is going to reach. It's not just the pain and the sadness that exists in reality. It is people making bad choices and accelerating those things and corrupting everyone around them. And the Jedi are the people who hold that back. And this is Luke literally finding a way to stand in front of the dark side and just go no further. I'm going to stand in your path so that others can live. It's pure knowledge and defense. And I think it illustrates the fact that it isn't Luke flying in there on an X-wing, jumping out, and it's too bad that I got to raise a blade against him, but I guess I will. It's him truly working hard to find a way that makes sense to him, that is not going to take away what he Luke believes in, what he Luke needs. It is a true Jedi choice, and I think it illustrates why I'm always on about justice for the Jedi. It's a hard path. The answers
yeah.
aren't easy in it. There's cleverness, there's honesty, there's sacrifice. Luke is a true Jedi, and it gives strength to what this moment is, a validation of the Jedi. Which I don't want to. We're having a fun podcast, and I know some people still still wrestle with the Last Jedi, and some people I think still focus on Luke's valid criticisms of the
Yeah.
Jedi. But the power of this is, yeah, it's really hard to be a Jedi because you can overstep, you can use violence, and then that can contribute to the cycle of the violence. But when you can find the right path, knowledge and defense, the light standing in front of the darkness so others can live, others can prosper, others can make their choice. It's not easy, but when you find it, it's needed, and it's not going to end with me.
Yeah, regarding all that, I mean, it's one of those things of watch to the end of the movie, right? The movie asks questions, but it keeps going and has some answers. So this is a big answer. I can't go any deeper than you beautifully did there, other than to just second all your thoughts on it there and what it means for Luke and how it would have been so easy, right? Quicker, more seductive. Just step out there, press the X button as hard as you can, and take out all those walkers. Would have been a fun video game sequence, but it wouldn't have been Luke. I don't mean to be snarky either, but I always say watch to the end of Return of the Jedi and see how that victory happened for him and his father and how that change happened. And this was built off that as much as anything. I do want to focus on the Kylo of it all. You used the word pathetic, and I was like, I had that word in my head. I'm like, is that too far? But no, that's very accurate. It's Kylo at his lowest. It is that it's the same kid that had the helmet, yanked the helmet off and had this scavenger tell him, "I know your fears." It's everything exposed. He's Kylo unhinged in a way, which is why I think Hux has some of the great comedy moments, but in this entire sequence has one of his almost moments of one up and of over Kylo, because Kylo's just so out of it, and I love the performance of Adam Driver overall. But this sequence is, I think, some of my favorite Adam Driver stuff. He just taps into the fear, not the rage, all that other stuff, but the fear, and this pathetic man in this beautiful black costume with the red blade that we all want to dress up at Halloween, and it's all cool and it's all dark side and it's all power, and it all means nothing. He's losing at every step, and I think I watch that more and more. Watch the scene more and more from that perspective, as well as the beauty of Luke. But that's why this is, to me, it's truly is a lightsaber fight, because it's a fight of perspectives, fight of directions and approaches.
It's a fight of light and dark, and Kylo is so relatable. I've had so many times in my life where I've gotten so mad and so angry. Like, you ever been like really mad? Everything in your day is going wrong, and then you're just gonna like, you're gonna watch a DVD, and you can't get the wrapper off. You cannot get the wrapper off, and you attack it furiously, and then like somebody else comes over and just pull this tab. That's the energy between Kylo and Hux there. I would be remiss if I did not mention the great line, the killer line. I love that everything about this is Luke being true to himself, and with that, some of the grump of older Luke in that line of amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong. The rebellion is reborn today. Light on Poe's face. The war is just beginning. Light on Finn's face. And I will not be the last Jedi. Light on Rey's face. I think it's fine if anybody doesn't like The Last Jedi or has their qualms or nitpicks. I have some qualms and nitpicks with it. But that line is so powerful from Luke Skywalker, and that sequence of cutting to each of them to illustrate this is the journey that each of these characters were on. This is what it symbolizes, is really a testament to the quality of the film. Our good friend here, 8984M, says, I will not be the last Jedi. Chills. It is absolutely that utter sense of triumph, of very similar to I am a Jedi like my father before me. I will not be the last Jedi.
Yeah. And you're talking earlier about, hey, these films are about how you interact with the past in a lot of ways. To me, that includes it. And I know you think this as well, because Star Wars thinks this. It's also about looking forward, right? Leia looks forward, like you said earlier. And so clearly, Luke being about the future here, being about the next generation. This is your fight now. That's why I love that moment, too. It's so great. So great.
Yeah.
Chills every time, says Harrison Gibson. Chills every time. We love those Star Wars nerd chills. Well, that's spectacular. I don't, some people in chat on this live recording for our Patreon supporters, Joseph, are saying, can we, Andrew McNabb saying, can we pause and just go watch the scene? Jonathan says, please. I'm with you on it. Imagine trying to rank these, or me trying to pull the stills from it. I ended up watching some of the scenes. Well, let's go to my number 3 here. This is talk about chills, talk about straight up rock and roll moment, and a moment that caused a lot of just an eruption of applause, screams, and cheers. The first few times I watched it there, I was there. I remember we are going to The Last Jedi. We are going to Snoke's throne room, and we have Rey and Kylo versus the Praetorian Guards versus Snoke versus each other. We have perhaps one of the biggest core scenes of the sequel trilogy all right here. And yes, this was turned into a wonderful meme where people played this with many rock songs behind it and pop songs, and every one of them worked. I want to go into the deep emotions of it and the deep themes, but Joseph, I got to start on the surface because the surface is so powerful. Just going kind of, I forget the actual time, but almost like kind of in the middle of the movie in a way, having what I thought and what a lot of people thought was going to be a final confrontation. I thought this might even have them and before Snoke, them possibly working together. That's an episode 9 thing, right? Or an end of 8. To have it right here, which means so much for Kylo. I always say this scene is in many ways about Kylo kind of becoming himself, which sounds like a victory moment if you're rooting for Kylo, but really it's not. But in his mind, it's this enough. As I remember Jennifer once said, anyone who ever told him to take that mask off, he kills. Which again, I'm not rooting for Kylo because part of that was Han. But that's kind of at play here. You got the faith. Snoke dismisses her and is downright nasty to her about her hope, her spark of fire, spark of hope. But she's got that. But they all bring that to the table. All that's great. We can get into the emotions. We can get into the themes. But that saber hits and that comes flying and that hand goes up. That is still, to this day, one of my favorite Star Wars moments. I didn't expect it there. I was like, "Oh my god, are they teaming up now?" There's that pause. His face goes red. Are they gonna fight? No, they're back to back. One of the rare uses of slow motion in Star Wars. So effective. The Praetorian Guards, and it's funny, we're recording this in a week where the Praetorian Guards got a little bit more action in The Mandalorian, and happy to see it, though rest in peace, Paz. But um, I love that this fight. I love that they just take it to the Praetorian Guards, and it's an amazing sequence that ends with just this wonderfully written scene, this wonderful dialogue. Her believing that Ben is there, but Ben's gone after a while. He's there for a moment, I think. She calls his name, he catches the blade, that great end of the sequence, that lightsaber going through Praetorian Guard's head, and just that echo, the silence that follows that moment. Great sound design, great use, great editing. But for her calling out Ben's name and Ben ain't there, God, it's just the core of this all, the hand, everything about it. The lie, half truth he's telling her, but the whatever he's saying to her cuts to the core of her scars, the core of her wounds. It cuts her to the quick, everything about it. And it's a throne room scene. And I love that Ryan Johnson's like, yeah, I'm doing a Star Wars movie. We need a throne room scene, because that's what I loved as a kid before the Emperor. Now we got it before Snoke. So that's my word barf to all of you here. I don't have the elegance because all I hear now is a rock song when the scene plays. It is absolutely an absolute jam.
You're a DJ of old. What is it? What song do you spin to that in your mind?
I do. I'm not. It's funny. I'm not a huge Zeppelin fan. Totally respect their place in rock history. They never grabbed me. But the use of the Zeppelin song, which is the first one I think I even saw, just that's a bad version of it. It just still works.
The
It still works for me. Yeah.
The immigrant song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's such a let's go song right at the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah. Still that fiery spit of hope. Stoke is written so well to be absolutely terrifying and menacing and big and pulpy and dramatic. There's so much that's great in this scene, and yeah, the first time you see it, it was a what is happening? Where are we going? I think I know that is also one of the points of conversation and contention that people who don't like the film feel like
Mhm.
this is subversion for subversion's sake, and I want to always respect people's opinions, but I think that for myself that part of what's going on, and I think what Ryan Johnson is interested in is that a lot of our storytelling has gotten to this point where people know the beats of the structure and to play with that a little bit. And it has meaning to me because I think we're almost in Ray's shoes where we're horribly tortured by Snoke. What is happening to her is awful. We're trying
Mhm.
like Ray to keep that fiery spit of hope, and then we get it, and we're back to back
Yeah.
with the child of Han and Leia who made a better choice. Uh, we're watching his thigh get squeezed, if we look real quick. And a lot of
Mhm.
people like that moment. Big moment for a lot of people. Understandable. Uh, and then to have this thrilling fight scene, I find it thrilling. I think it's well choreographed. And then to have the bottom fall out and realize, oh, this isn't the victory moment.
Mhm.
This was Kylo connecting with Rey, but it was more him getting rid of another father figure who told him what to do.
Yeah.
And the bottom falling out of that. And still, like we talked about, that great scene in The Force Awakens, the mixture of truth and manipulation and vulnerability. And as you know, people in the comments are saying,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
the please
Yeah.
is just one of the best line deliveries in Star Wars.
I really agree with that. It's to me some of Daisy's best work in that scene, because it's pure heartbreak, right? And to me, I don't know what you think. I don't necessarily, it's Luke tells her it's not going to go the way you think it is, all that kind of stuff. But that's more than just the realization there. It's just it's true heartbreak, and it's heartbreak for him. I think her heartbreak is maybe not for herself in that moment. It's for him, and that's part of the connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it is a realization of this is a longer, harder road. She
Mhm.
saw she saw the pain in him, the vulnerability in him,
Mm.
sensed that there's so much more there than his anger,
Mhm.
and got this flash, but didn't get the whole picture. That
Yeah.
he was far enough to want the connection with Ray, to need the connection with Ray, but still not far enough on his journey to let go of the anger
Yeah.
and the need to control.
Yeah. 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 Great stuff there. Let's get to some of the comments here before we move on. First of all, on a lighter note, Simon Huffnagel says, on a lighter note, when Snoke looks down, do you think he's mad at the betrayal or mourning his favorite robe? Column A, column B, a little both. Maybe no one's last time I look at those slippers. Could be.
I've made a terrible mistake, thinks Snoke.
Jonathan says this: the curtain burning is one of the great pieces, purely visual storytelling. We go from a room that looks like Snoke's colonoscopy video to seeing the entire galaxy and what's at stake. And I do absolutely love that take of this is what's going on. This is where this is the galaxy in balance there, or in balance. Yeah. Mm.
I think Ray's little roar of fury and rage during the fight. I remembered us discussing in The Last Jedi, but it's such a great build up to Rise of Skywalker, where she has earned life experiences that are painful and traumatic, and she has lots of reasons to have legitimate anger. And I love that
Mhm.
there's this beat in Last Jedi where she's just like, "Yeah, I'm not a calm, poised Jedi. Got a lightsaber and I'm angry. Ah, it's great."
Love that there. Great comments from all of you there. Simon also calls the Sabercatch an all-timer.
Hmm.
Brian Ward says this is his Hall of Fame, Star Wars ranked Hall of Fame choice for this category. Yeah. Love that there. All right. All right. Any more jump out to you? I forget where we're at. This is, by the way, this is so weird to do this on video because normally this is part of the recording. I'd be doing this. Just looking.
Yep, yep. Just wanted to share this other one from 8984M. I cannot be betrayed. Famous last words. Yeah,
Yeah.
put that on his tomb.
Put that on his tomb, indeed. All right, that is our number 3 choices. We're ranking our favorite sequel trilogy scenes. And Joseph, we are, according to my records, up to your number 2.
My number 2, we are here, and it is time for me to cheat slightly, as I like to do. I actually moved away from the comment. So,
Yeah.
Ken, do you mind? Yeah, thank you.
There we go.
Uh,
There we
it seems like maybe a weird spirit to have on the live stream for the rest of the time.
go.
I cannot be betrayed. I picked my number 2, and I cannot be betrayed. Thank you for the comment. My number 2 is combining 2 scenes because I love them both, and they are powerful individually, but they are absolutely interconnected. So I must discuss them together. Han and Kylo on the bridge / platform from The Force Awakens in The Rise of Skywalker. Absolutely essential, huge. I will never forget my emotions on the first viewing of both of these scenes.
Mhm.
The first one in The Force Awakens, there'd been so much discussion of, well, Harrison Ford is famous for always having said he thought that Han should have passed in Return of the Jedi, so there are higher stakes, and he's coming back. But everybody's like, but it's Harrison Ford. He's not going to do 6 of these. So everybody's like, yeah, well, he's going to go. He's going to go, right? And I had that sort of like, yeah, that seems about right. And the rest of the film drove that from my mind entirely until he started walking out on that bridge. And I had to gear up for this character that had been with me for my entire life. It's gonna happen. How is it gonna happen? Uh, there's so much about that scene in The Force Awakens. There are just phenomenal shots. They're some of my favorite shots. When Kylo turns and it's not super dramatic, but it's a slight Dutch angle, so he's really just like irritating the screen. He's just like
Yeah.
exploding in energy. Uh, and then everything about the interaction. It is shot and kind of
Mhm.
we're in a technical space, but it's very fantasy like. It's very dreamlike.
Mhm.
Some of those more, yeah, that
Yeah.
one looks like what sensitive 80s music video is this from? Um, it especially like some of the shots from far away, it barely looks
Mhm.
real. The extremely direct but extremely powerful. There's a beam of light that enters as
Yeah.
Rey and Finn get in there, the next generation, that possibility of light that fades out as Kylo makes his horrible choice. There's a lot about the way that it's shot that's
Mhm.
extremely evocative. There are quotes in here that I think about all the time. Everybody's having fun sharing their Adam Driver deliveries that they can't do without. I'm being torn apart. I want to be free of this pain. I think about that sometimes when I'm in actual pain. I think about that sometimes when I'm just stuck in traffic.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to be free of this pain. Um,
Yeah.
but it's powerful from Kylo's perspective. This belief that if I keep going farther and farther down this path, it will make the path okay.
Yeah.
And it's not essential at all. The scene is powerful without it, but I think some of the ideas that were fleshed out in that great 4-issue comic book run, Rise of Kylo Ren, about a sort of challenge to what's the hardest kill that you could do to prove that
Mm.
there's nothing that you won't do, that you're so strong in yourself that you can do anything. I think adds to it. It is not essential at all because I was moved deeply the first
Mhm.
time I saw this. Biggest thing we've talked about a lot is just Han's bravery. Han does his best work on bridges. We joke about. There's the great moment in Return of the Jedi where his instincts are to give in to grumpiness and anger. And oh, who could you tell? You could tell Luke. Ah, he stops
Mm.
himself and he
Mm.
turns around. Han is such a hero in The Force Awakens, from the deciding to turn back to plant the bombs because he knows they're not going to win otherwise. And the galaxy's depending on them. That's a triumphant moment. But this is the fulfillment of the hardest, most frightening thing to Han, to be truly, truly emotionally vulnerable and to walk out there and say the hardest thing, just we miss you. Uh,
Mhm.
and even we've talked about this so much, and I think so many fans see this and feel this, but the power of Kylo felt like his family wasn't there for him, that they sent him away, that they didn't truly want him, that they were, myths and legends that he was cursed to try to live up to, including some Ben Jedi he never met and never cared
Yeah.
about. And to try to do this to prove to himself that he can be strong, that he isn't what he fears, do this awful thing to his father, and to receive back the deepest sentiment of unconditional love by his
Yeah.
father touching his cheek. Hugely powerful. It could be my number one scene. It could be my
Yeah.
number two scene by itself, but it's not, because the pain of that one is addressed by The Rise of Skywalker. We talked a lot in the intervening years about, could that be the cheek touch that helped save the galaxy?
Mhm.
When the scene started in The Rise of Skywalker, I didn't expect it. Hey kid, was like the grumbly older man. Is that Luke or
Right. Right.
Han?
Yeah. Is
Right,
that? Mhm.
right. And I know some people even wanted it to be Luke with the see around kid. Uh, but
Yeah.
the fact that it was just that, it truly was a memory. It was Kylo Ben doing what we all do, of, in retrospect, going back and like, where did I make the choices I most regret?
Yeah.
And if I could do it again, what would I do different?
Mm.
And the
Mm.
the power of those scenes being mirrored in the placement, the way they're standing, some of the direct lines of the, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Uh, and that line is not just a, oh, I get it, we're mirroring the scenes, he's revising his choices, but it's about the blade.
Mm.
Because in The Force Awakens, I don't know if I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. It's pulling out the blade and using it. And that this scene in The Rise of Skywalker is also about the blade as a symbol of what he's become, and needing to remove that from himself and throw it away. Um, Extremely powerful, extremely moving. All of the little lines, the dad, I
Mm.
know, that
Mm.
great, like, son, you're like
Mm.
me. It's gonna be hard for you to say this emotion. I don't need you to. I got it. the stuff about the feeling that it's too late. And
Mm,
your mother's gone, but what she stood for, what she fought for, that's not gone. The scenes together become this great healing, not just of the death of Han, but it resonates with the big ideas of the sequel trilogy that Ben has run from the past, tried to kill it out of a fear of it. And this is a moment of him gaining strength from it, of
yeah.
wanting to be a part of his mother's legacy, of wanting to be assured by the memory of his father that he is strong enough. He's gaining strength from his father when Han tells him, "You are strong enough," and
Mhm.
reiterates that cheek touch of unconditional love.
Mhm.
Absolutely beautiful.
I think it's not a cheat to put these two together because I think they're the same scene, right? They're the same
Mhm.
scene told at different times and told maybe from different perspectives, maybe both perspectives being Kylo's or Ben's, if you want to look at it that way. I love that you included these and love what you said about it. These are two important moments for me, and not just because I'm a Han Solo guy all these years, but also has a lot to do with it as well. I want to start actually at the end. In my thoughts on it here, yeah, you're right. It's the blade, right? It's the one action that he wanted to do. And you got the mention earlier in the film from Ray of just kind of I don't have the quote in front of me, but she's acknowledging to Kylo like I know what you see in your head, and I don't think she necessarily thinks your dad appears to you wherever you are in your haunted memories, but she knows what's replaying. She has that connection. She sees it to a certain degree, and it is about the blade. But I always like that. What torment to go all those years with this action you thought was going to push you forward, forced you forward, and it doesn't. And I think in his mind, he just wants to say those words, "I love you." That's all he wants to say, and that will allow him to throw the blade. But the fact that for all these years he can't, for all these years he can't, and in this moment, following the duel with Ray, following what's going on with his mother at this point in time, following all the things he's learned since Force Awakens, to have now kind of this memory be a healing one and a one that drives him forward. It's just why it works for me on so many levels. And I'm with you too. I was surprised, right? I think you were sitting behind me, and it's just like
Mhm.
you hear Han's voice, you hear Harrison's voice, and I was really surprised. And since this is a permanent record type of episode, things that you and I have talked about, I cannot fail to bring up the discussion that you and I had, I think, over a phone call when I was calling in a Jedi Alliance, but over the
Mm.
years of how I've changed in which the ways in which I engage with Star Wars and art overall have a lot to do with this scene because I think even seeing in a chat here of yeah 8984M says yeah I didn't cry in Force Awakens because of Harrison's famous sentiments about Han died, and I was in that spot too, where I kind of forgot, but then the moment it happens and he calls out his name and I'm looking, there's no railings. I thought, oh, here we go. Here we go. And I wanted more, right? I thought, all this, his whole life leads to this. And I just was almost kind of upset because I wasn't listening to what not just the scene was saying, I wasn't listening to what the movie was saying. Your scene with Han and Leia is about this. It's
Mhm.
leading to this. It can't be Luke. You're his father. It's leading to this. That scene on Takodana where Kylo is carrying Ray away, and Finn's like, "We gotta go get her," and Han has that moment of we can't. Right? It's all leading to this because that's Han's life. You know, Han is the hero. He's one of the greatest heroes of all time in pop
Mhm.
culture. He helps win the day in New Hope, but the first thing we see him do in Empire Strikes Back is run away.
Mm.
The he comes back and the biggest is why I harp on the moment of the novelization suggests that Captain Solo was not a rank in the rebellion. It was just him in the Falcon. That General Solo was his first rank in the rebellion. And that moment, whether the novelizations, Obi-Wan's brother, of course, you know, the canon adjacent, but it's about Leia in that moment when May Dean's like, General Solo's your strike team assemble, and she's like, you finally committed to something. And so he finally commits to something. But here we pick up years later, and there's a bunch of stories in between and comics and books and
Trauma.
drama. We pick it up, and he's done it again. He's done it again. And my guy Han has run away again. And here in his final moments, he commits because Leia asked him to bring their son home. And he succeeds in a way that he couldn't even imagine that moment because of the cheek touch. And I watched it this morning, pulling the picture. Adam Driver probably doesn't know that in 2019 he's going to have this thing. I don't know that yet. I don't know any of that. But in that moment, he plays it as it's this incredible sense of shock, confusion, pain, as if he knows in that moment what he just did is not going to work. As a cheek touch. And I love it so much. And it moves me as Han guy who collected all the figures and wanted to be as cool as Han. What I really needed to learn is I need to grow like Han, and I need to commit to things more like Han finally does, even at the greatest cost. But it's the cheek touch that saves the galaxy. So, man, I love this sequence. So,
Yeah,
we can end it right there, but we're not.
well said to you. And yeah, there's so many different ways that I think if you started watching Star Wars in 2015 with The Force Awakens, regardless of how long you've been with these characters, you go back and you watch their adventures and you have a personal relationship. And there's so many personal ways into these scenes and in the way that we find them, the way that characters represent stuff to us. And there's a part of Han that he was always the coolest because he did a weird, daring, risky, cheeky thing, and he found a way out. And I think part of the power of him marching out on that bridge is he knows exactly how risky that is. He doesn't have I don't know how we're going to get out of this one cheeky line. It's, I realize I'm walking out on a railless bridge with the dark side Force user who hates me, thinks I failed him, but it's what I have to do. It's almost I don't know, Jedi like, not in the like literally sign up for it, sign up for Jedi school, but the philosophy of I have power over what I have power over. In that very true thing in the real world of when you want to help someone, you have control over your part of it and you can offer them help. You can say, I want to let come home with me and let me help you. I don't choose it for you. I don't make it. I offer. And if you're ready, you're ready. And that Han has the strength to just do that, he's thinking of Leia, she gives him the mission and he's like, all right, I'll be strong. I'll be strong like my wife is really powerful. Final thought that I wanted to share is that there's so much power in that line of I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And one time being, if I do the most awful murder, then I will finally be free of the chains of society. And versus let go of my anger, let the full flood of regret wash over me, and still find a way to move forward and still admit that there is or could be a path forward. Star Wars comes back to this again and again, but it is one of the most powerful versions of the light side is not easier. I knew I was going to find a way to bring it back to Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like his line in the Clone Wars with Maul of he says it takes strength to resist the dark side. Only the weak embrace it. And it's a great life lesson that just making the kind choice, the scary choice, the light side choice is often way, way harder.
Way harder indeed. And one of my final notes, going back to just kind of outside of the story and outside of the themes we're discussing here in the moment, and just looking at how, going back to in 2015 when I engaged with this and how I engage with it now. Again, there's always going to be things in films that you're like, oh, I don't know if I like that. And you might have to run through it. And there's always some what ifs. And we always, as podcasters, I think you and I focus on, and Jennifer as well, of, hey, well, what's there? What's the art saying? What's the story? What are the creators saying? And let's engage with that. That's why we do that. But it doesn't mean that as fans, we don't run those things through our mind. And this moment, along with Luke's later on, a couple years later, were one of those moments that forever changed me, because I did finally pull back and go, all right, the idea that Han died is not necessarily a surprise. Again, we've been hearing this since 1983 or whatever, all those Harrison things, and even Lawrence Kasdan agreeing, and all that stuff. So let's take that out of it. How would I want him to go? And, it's okay to play with that. All right, maybe he does that. Maybe he shoots this, and it all pales in comparison to the choice they made for me. And it's not necessarily going to be the case for every decision along the way. In all these movies, there's some other things. Oh, maybe this, maybe that. Totally. But it goes with the Luke death as well. It goes with this. It's like, all right, how would I have wanted it? And how does it compare to this? And I think I often find that the soul of the art often wins me over versus what you're talking, a power move from Han. Was he going to duel Kylo? Like, what's going to, like, is he going to run away? Like, how do you play it out? And that's helped me engage with Star Wars in a different level as well. So I owe it all to Han and Kylo in this scene.
Yeah. Han made a great choice, in my opinion.
It is. Some good comments coming in here. Simon saying there's also a parallel here, I think, between the Rise of Skywalker moment and Luke and Return of the Jedi, both throwing away their blades and rejecting the dark side. 8984 Ben's regret really got me. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts indeed. And he also comes back. They also come back with this. In a saga full of poor parenting decisions, good parenting saves the day. That's a good way to look at it. Okay. Well, that is just the number 2. We got a couple more here. I'm going to go to my number 2, and this is in The Last Jedi. This is a moment that has so much meaning in story and even more meaning outside of the story. And it is, we're going back to Crate. There's a lot of despair. There seems to be no hope. The light in the galaxy has gone out, and suddenly there's a stirring at the door. Luke Skywalker has arrived. And it is specifically the interaction for me between Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa. Solo if you want, Skywalker if you want, but Princess Leia, General Leia, our Leia. I love this scene. And you know what? I'll say here, Joseph, yeah, here's one of the things I've always wondered about a big what if. Like, the big 3 on screen together in Force Awakens, we didn't get it. And I'm completely okay with saying, hey, that was a decision they made, and we'll see if that stands the test of time. At the end of the day, I love the daring choice to end with Luke on that hill. I love the daring choice to have Han and Leia kind of be at odds, separated, figuring things out, all that stuff we talked about here. They made that choice, and then tragedy strikes, and we lose Carrie Fisher, and we don't have a chance to do anything with those 3 characters together, which means that's why I just love this scene even more, that we did get them together. And yes, it's Luke projecting on Crate, but it's Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia in 2017 across from each other, having this beautiful scene, having this moment when the light seems to be out. And here comes Luke, and all this thing that leads into all the stuff you talked about earlier. And he's not necessary to completely save the day himself. He's there for another reason, which adds even some more power to it. But I love that it's about their connection. I love that it's about her hair changing. I love honestly, I love the way it was shot, and it's tear-inducing. It's tear-jerking the moment it comes on, because you also know the reality of the real world we live in, and that Carrie by this point is gone. And so to have that no one's ever really gone moment, it's hard to not separate that for me. It even moves me now. It's a, even though we get the character in a wonderful technological achievement kind of way later on, this is kind of a beautiful send-off in a way for me as a fan. But I love what they're saying there. I love what Luke's saying. And it's one of those scenes where I've engaged with differently over the years too, where you remember even some discussions. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if Kylo's going to get redeemed, because Luke kind of said he didn't. He said he couldn't get redeemed. I'm not here to save him. But then to kind of break it down and move away from that and go back to what the scene is actually saying. It is about Leia. It is about Han. It is about, I am merely his uncle who he's pissed at. His mentor who maybe messed up, probably did. I think Luke feels I messed up. That's what he says later on in the fight, like you said. So it ain't about me. The big Jedi hero can't be the hero. It's you. That's the connection. It's Han. That's the connection. It's the memory of Han. That's the connection. And that becomes one of the more powerful things about the scene. That's part of the legacy of the scene for me as well. And yeah, it's got a little fun wink and nod to 3PO and their connection. And for me, talking about watching the movie the first time, why this one always stands out as one of my favorites is the action was so hot and heavy and things are going on. I honestly forgot about Luke Skywalker. And so when he appears, part of the reason I did not immediately pick up, like a lot of people, I literally thought God's funny. He got a haircut and dyed his beard on the flight over. Like, I was so lost in just the moment, I couldn't pick up on anything. I was just so excited Luke was there, because I kind of forgot in a way. I was just so wrapped up. So it worked on me. It completely worked on me in so many different ways. And well, I just love this scene. Han and Leia, Luke and Leia together after all these years.
Yeah, extremely powerful. Lots of great stuff. I did not pick up on he's a projection. I felt like there was so much in The Last Jedi that was surprising that I felt like a little off kilter. But one of the really powerful moments is this is Leia not maybe losing hope, but accepting defeat of I
Mhm,
fought and
mhm,
I fought and I fought. I felt I kept this little band together. Now we're just we're rats
mhm,
in a trap, and we're calling out, and people aren't believing. People aren't hoping. They're not rallying to the cause. To have her be at this low moment,
mm,
in myself being Luke Skywalker obsessed in The Last Jedi, I I f I felt like I was screaming. I hope I wasn't out loud, but I felt like in the theater, but I felt I was screaming like, "Luke has to walk in now. Luke
yeah,
has to walk in." So I
yeah,
was not in ahead of, yes, he's projecting from Crate in any way, shape, or form, but there was like, this is his hero moment. He has to walk in.
yeah,
So I was so elated when he did walk in. Uh Leia's always been the one who's strong. As Luke says to Leia in Return of the Jedi, "You've always been strong." Holdo says it to her in this film. "You're the one who
mhm,
taught me how." Um, for Luke to be there for Leia in that moment where Leia really, really is like, "I need a little something to keep going." And it's also powerful to me from the perspective of discussions of uh, what is well connected in these films versus what isn't. There's so much that people focus on of what they feel like doesn't work together, and is always open
mhm,
to all sorts of opinions and perspectives and arguments. Uh, but this is one of those moments. What kicks off my first thing I wanted to share is Leia saying, "I can't believe I was so foolish to think I could bring Luke back."
mm,
And she's so centered on like, "Yeah, Luke, I don't need you to go swinging the blade and beat everybody. I need you to be a symbol of hope." This is
right,
a victory for Leia that he shows up. There's everything in The Last Jedi of like, your sister sent me here with hope. If there's no hope, she deserves to know why there's
mm,
no hope. This is a victory for Leia. So both Luke and Leia need it. It's a powerful scene for both of them. I love that Carrie Fisher's humor got in there with
yeah,
the
yeah,
hair change. And no one's ever really gone is the gift that keeps giving, because I think it means so many different things. It means I can't get through to Kylo. That's not to Ben. That's not the relationship we have. But no one's ever really gone. Uh, it's I think about Leia's hope that Luke could return. Like, you were right about me.
mm,
No one's ever really gone, and it is
mm,
obviously also about Han. And Han is not literally in this scene. The big three don't share a scene, but his spirit is there. His
yeah,
presence is there. Those dice are there. The memory of him is there. And for a really cool, super powerful, esoteric Jedi power that Luke does, it's also kind of a Han Solo plan.
mhm,
Eh,
mhm, yeah,
I'll distract him with an illusion.
yeah,
You guys run for the hills. The spirit of Han Solo is there. No one's ever really gone.
mm, nah. Well said indeed. And yeah, Bill Burrow Baggins is in chat, says, cry every time I watch this. Yeah, so does Ethan. Ethan says the moment he sits down and the Twins theme comes from Jedi and Twins theme from Return of the Jedi comes in, I absolutely lose it. Yeah, agreed with that there as well. Yeah, so many things. And a lot of people asking about that Luke on crate figure we haven't really got
Mm,
yet, right? You know?
yeah, we have the vintage 3 3/4, which I don't know why they didn't make more of or re-release. He's
Yeah.
bonkers expensive. Because they
Yeah.
didn't, yeah, why there isn't a Black Series, as everybody's saying, why there isn't a retro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is such a great vision of Luke, and there needs to be more.
More Connie as well in chat. Hey, Connie, that was such a poignant, powerful last scene between Luke and Leia. Cue the waterworks every single time. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Well, we're almost to our number one choices, Joseph, but we're going to have a little fun here. If you're live in chat, our Patreon supporters, our patrons, if you're here with us, you're going to help us with some, honorable mentions. Those runner-ups we always have. We don't have any, but we'll talk about a couple of them here if you've got them now. We can go back to some of the choices here in the beginning. We've got Matthew Stokes, Joseph saying, for me, number one is Luke and Leia on crate. No one's ever really gone. Seconding what we say here. Adelaro Fuentes says, I love the sequel trilogy, but two scenes come to mind. Always when I think about it. The first is the meeting between Zori and Rey. I don't know if you care, but I think it's pretty great. I care. Love that choice as well. That is one of those little tiny scenes. that if you've said this recently about some other stuff in Star Wars, that if Rise of Skywalker came out in '83 and you all only had the VHS, that'd be one of those scenes you probably know word for word and just would be part of you. And it's just one of those fun Star Wars scenes.
And I just love the connection between the Luke saying "I care" in the first Skywalker Saga film, and Rey saying "I care" in the final Skywalker Saga film.
Love that. Jacob's got some choices here as well. If you see any you like, Joseph, let me know, or you throw them in there. Jacob has a full number 5 list here. Resistance X-Wing fighters arriving on Takadona. Agree with that. Bridge scene, Star Killer base, like we talked about. Rey catches a saber in Force Awakens. Oh, that was hard for me to cut. That was really hard for me to cut. Also in that moment, Finn standing strong, standing up for Rey. He picks up that blade for her in that film in 11. Ben shrugging the Knights of Ren, and then Luke's passing away. Hard choices we had to make here to cut some off.
Speaking of hard choices, Andrew McNabb says, Rey's introduction is beautiful. Without much dialogue, we learned so much. And even if I'm sitting with a gourmet meal in front of me, I'd still toss it all out for that fine-looking brush she makes. It really does for like what is like a sad. I live alone in my AT-AT apartment. It does look real tasty. Looks really, really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
That introduction, that music.
Yeah.
So her sense of looking to the future but feeling utterly constrained by the past. Beautiful.
Agree with that one there. I used to watch that on repeat on the DVD Blu-ray. I think it was so long ago. It might even be the DVD that I had. Oh yeah, go. No, I was good. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Will Culbertson says, "I'll never forget how loud I gasped with the Holdo maneuver. That's my number 1. That is a great number 1."
Love that there. Connie says, I vividly remember the cheek touch, a moving and tender moment, a big moment for her as well. Couple more here. Anakin cites Luke and Leia together at the end of Rise of Skywalker. That's in there as well. Ethan saying Kylo versus Rey in The Force Awakens. Natalie says, one word, porgs.
That is absolutely great. Mike Jornlin says Yoda in The Last Jedi was my favorite. Yoda's my favorite character, and I love how he came back and just sort of gently gave one more lesson. Yes, he did. A multi-layered lesson from Yoda. This is not a scene, but it was a comment that got made that I think there's a good place to highlight, Ken. Natalie says, your new goal for a Happy Beeps has been met. We wanted, since this is a Patreon live stream, it was a goal. Our next goal after this was we set a goal of reaching 2,000 a month. And at that goal, our wonderful podcast YouTube partner, Jennifer Landa, is going to take some of her old episodes of a show called Happy Beeps, Jedi Beats, that we're combining to Jedi Beeps. We'll see if we call it that. Great deep dives with all of Jennifer's personality, all of Jennifer's love of the behind the scenes of the creatures, of the fantastic side of Star Wars, combined with her background and her heritage from her father of being an investigative journalist and wanting to know the truth, compiling it. Those old episodes are great, but Jennifer is raring to go now that we've hit this goal of adding perhaps some new content, but definitely visuals and making them into robust YouTube videos. There's going to be a series of them, and we're so excited and so thankful. And this is a great thing now where, for the most part, Ken and I get to sit back, help Jennifer if she requests it. But other than that, Jennifer's just going to knock our socks off.
There you go. Mike Fink says the beep goes on. Love that there. We got to get to our choices, but I do. Brian Ward says scenes of Rey and Jakku eating. Rey just breathing up a sauna, waiting for Kylo as he flies towards her. Great trailer moment. Great movie moment. David McKay, Finn and Poe reuniting in The Force Awakens. The jacket moment. That jacket moment. Absolutely.
Biting that lip.
Absolutely. Harrison's got a good one there about the Falcon on Jakku. Both of them saying, I can do this. Wonderful choices. But we've got to get to our number 1 choices, our favorite sequel trilogy scenes, as always here in Star Wars Ranked. I'll go first. So the technical guest, Joseph, can go first. But really, for you and I, the guest mantle does not apply here. But I want you to close out the show. But my number 1, I thought long and hard. I love that Yoda moment. I love Yoda's theme is the sound of enlightenment to me. I love everything about that. Force Awakens, Rey getting the saber is big. It's big for so many reasons. But I decided to go The Force Awakens, and something that's still my alarm clock something I still wake up to after all these years. And it is one of the first things that really pulled me into this modern era in 2015 and talking about it and thinking about it. And is Rey climbing up those steps on Octo. John Williams, the Jedi Steps music is building and playing, and it leads to Luke Skywalker. And here's the thing. Now we have context. Now we know that the very next moment, challenges emerge. Obstacles are there. The journey doesn't end. And that's a good thing. Because I was watching again the scene, Joseph, as I pulled the still that I'm about to show here, or one of the moments. There's the moment there where she holds out the blade. I didn't pull the blade moment, but you got this girl from nowhere, this scavenger who always believed that this was a myth and this was someone else's story, and she's literally climbing the steps. But what does she do? She hands the blade over. She hands the blade over, and in 2015, that seemed like the thing to do. It's Luke, but to have this trilogy not be about that, it was never going to be about that. It was always about the old and the new, always about the generation from the past, passing the story, passing the fight, passing the lessons to the next generation. So without a doubt, I think we all should have been, maybe speaking for myself, a little bit concerned that she handed out the blade and knowing that that's just the beginning, Ray. And it was just the beginning. So years later, I love this moment even more that Luke rebuffs the offer, that Luke is grumpy Luke, that she has to go through trials, that that blade will change and break, that she offers it to Luke again, and he says no, and you've got to take up the mantle, and all leads to her at the end of Rise of Skywalker, her own blade. But this moment becomes even more powerful, and for what it means for that generation. Anytime I see a young fan walking around a convention dressed as Rey, anytime I hear someone like you go, I want to grow up to be Rey, think of this moment. Think of this moment. She didn't think she belonged, and now she's at the center of the story. I always say Star Wars is about the hope of tomorrow being present today, and you've already begun your journey. Her journey already began. And that's without the details of who she was, what name she had, whose father, whose grandfather was in her play, and all those kind of rumors and all those kind of clickbaity predictions and all those kind of things are tossed out the window. It is the story of her already being on the journey, and this is just the next step. But it's big and it's bold, and I love that ending. And watching it again today, the shot of them flying over the island and her just holding that blade out. It's just the beginning. That's why I love it so much. That is my number one, my favorite sequel trilogy moment.
That is such a great choice, and so tied to her eyes popping. Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth. And she goes through these trials and she walks up these steps expecting to meet a myth, and she meets a man, and the power is that his choices are so powerful that he can become mythic again, and so can she. That we all have that in us to make choices that are hard and difficult, but inspire others and become mythic again. But it takes real human trials to get through them. And the music's great. I would love to wake up to that every day. I'll look into it.
Andrew McNabb says, I still hum the music to myself every time I climb a flight of stairs. Yeah, as you should. As you should. So there you go. That's my number one. But that leads us to your number one, Joseph. This is it. You can make a last second decision. I won't have a photo. If you want to change something, you can make it. But I think I know where you're going and where we're going to stay. So what is your number one favorite sequel trilogy scene?
There is no change in this one for the foreseeable future. There is sadness that I had to leave some others out. Many of the ones that I wrestled with leaving out, our wonderful listeners and friends shared. So I feel a little bit better that they were runner-ups there on this show. But for me, it's the first scene that I thought of. It's a scene that I would love regardless, but has now taken on even more wonderful, wonderful weight. My number one scene is Rey buries the Skywalker blades and ignites her own. Many different ways that you could describe this scene, but it is by far my favorite right now. It's what resonates with me because it is such a great summation of the discussion of the sequel trilogy, what's at stake emotionally. You were describing so well in retrospect, feeling the tension of the end of Force Awakens of Rey keeps trying to pass that blade off, being like, it's a relay race and I'll carry it for a little while, but please, who do I give it to? And when she finally accepts that she needs to hold it, she has to deal with all that real human stuff, that heroes aren't just a myth, that she's got all this anger that she has a right to feel from a very, very difficult life. She finally has what she wants, which is people around her, and she fears losing them, fears making a misstep and losing the people that she cares about. And she fights through all of this and gets to this place. I want to share and discuss her connecting with the Jedi of the past and Yoda's great line. But what I love about this is it's the conflict is gone, and it's just about being in the moment and celebrating the past and celebrating the future. I love that it's a mirror of her opening scene, that she slides down the hill. There's extra weight and clarity to this scene, I feel, after the Kenobi television show. I've always felt that she was going to that spot because it's the closest to a family seat that the Skywalkers have. Shmi is buried there, but Luke experienced something there that Rey longed for. He was cared for and loved. And when we met him in A New Hope, he was bored and anxious and ready to leave. But what we saw in the Kenobi show is what Obi-Wan sees at the end of that show, of he just needs to be a child. You two are enough. You love him. You're giving him this beautiful foundation. And I think echoing through time, echoing through the Force, when Rey walks through that dining room, she feels that. She feels that love and that history there. This is a place where Luke was loved. And then, of course, just the wonderful symbolism of I have got so much from the past, but I need to move toward the future. I respectfully bury the past, and then I take out my lightsaber, forged of my experiences, and think about my future. Inherent in this scene, and in her ignition of her awesome golden blade with the cool spinny ignition, is it's the old and the new. It's having a good balance with the past and moving to the future. It's the combination of the inherent and the inherited. We are individuals and we are made of our experiences, but we also are part of a community and we need other people. Rey is an incredibly strong individual, and that blade, that hilt made out of her life experience with that different color, that is her and her uniqueness. But she, like everyone, still needs others. She still needs to feel a part of something, as she's always wanted to do. And it is both of those. It's the inherent and the inherited. She is not just Rey. That name has value, but she also is Skywalker. The Rey Skywalker line is always brings me to tears. And the final thing that I have to say about it is, we've been talking a lot about this balance between accepting the reality of how hard life is and that we're all humans making choices with the mythic. And the character who right now only has the name Old Woman with Itobi coming through with this mythic line. There's been no one for so long. You can absolutely interpret that of like, I walk around here because this has been an abandoned, haunted, scary place for decades. But on a mythic level, it's the return of the hero, the return of the Jedi. There's been no one for so long, but Rey Skywalker is here now. She finishes her journey. This might be my favorite scene regardless, but right now it's definitely my favorite scene, because now when we watch that lightsaber ignite, we are watching the future ignite, and we know that we're going to get to see that future. We're going to get to go on that journey with Rey.
Oh, yeah. I think we're going to have to revisit this scene in a few years. Hopefully soon. Maybe 2025. We'll see. Not putting pressure on it. Well said. I don't mean to cut you off if you want longer, but I could listen to you.
No, that's it.
I'm a fan of just you discussing the scene, because it means so much. And going back to the beginning of this conversation, going back to your Han and Leia choice, and just kind of this big theme of the sequel trilogy, it is about the past. It's about the legacy. It's how we all wrestle with it, how the older generation wrestles with it, how the new generation wrestles with what came before them and what is over them and what can they live up to it. to go back to that moment, to go back to that Luke Skywalker was a myth, all those things we talked about, to this moment, exactly what you're saying. You got so much of Kylo's energy for so long was just kill the past, destroy the past, because I'm afraid of the past and I don't know what to do with it. And just and you got to put it and I still, not to go any kind of negative way, but just that anyone would think that was the theme of episode 8 is it's not. So I guess it's kind of incorrect, right? It's the villain expressing his point of view on it. And this is the theme. This is the point of all of them together, and it leads to this moment. And I'm with you too. Old woman with Eope. I think I think it's a mileage may vary moment for a lot of people. Get it, but I really think you're right. I really think it is about that. It's about the literal. This place has been empty. We've been trying to rent it. No one will take it. Sure. But it is about exactly what you're saying. It's about the trilogy. It's about the saga. It's about the story. And I'm so excited that after we see her ignite that yellow blade, that now is just the beginning of her story. That's exciting. Love that. Love that.
Yeah. It is a great moment. It thrills me every time, and even more thrilling. Can't wait to see that blade get ignited again.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So excited. Well, we've done it. And only 6 minutes after the time we thought we would give ourselves tonight, Joseph. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you all who are watching live here, our Patreon supporters who make this happen, who made the Jennifer goal happen, and more of these on the way. We really appreciate the community. That is why we're here. It's not just about what we love and what we don't like and what we celebrate. It's about the community. It's about the people. There's more of us, Poe. There's more of us, Poe. We thank you for listening to this episode today. You know where you can find and follow us if you're listening a little bit later on. Maybe you don't. After we make this episode public, we can be found on Twitter at Force Center Pod. We're on Instagram, clearly on YouTube. Find us on Facebook. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. Follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com. Joseph, where can they find you? And do you want to highlight anything cool that you're working on?
Yeah, you can find me on, I always say all the social media. You can find me on some social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I am doing some more not unboxing videos on both TikTok and YouTube. I got a bounty of new friends at Star Wars Celebration and in London in general. So if you like those, check those out. And if you want to see some of my comedy, some of my short films, those are up on YouTube for social media or YouTube. Just search for my name, Joseph Scrimshaw.
That is it. Search for his name. Search for my name. Don't forget to follow Jennifer Land as well. She's got a big project in front of her, and she's excited to get to it. That is it, my friends. Star Wars has been ranked.